Alright, what's going on everyone out there on YouTube? NES Ruler, and welcome to a brand new review. And this time around we'll be checking out a film that was sent to me review by 101 Films, and you can pick this up right now at all your favorite online retailers. It is a film from the year 1992 that is finally getting the release it deserved. It is a film from the UK titled Ghostwatch. Now, first off, I want to say, look at this edition of Ghostwatch. I mean, just look at that. It's a nice, thick, hard edition of Ghostwatch with so many goodies that we'll get into in a little bit. But, I mean, what an edition from 101 Films on this movie that is finally getting a solid release, especially here in the States, because it hasn't been viewed here until pretty recently. I first heard about this movie here in the States, like most people, when it popped up on Shudder for the first time, and I gave it a watch. And then a couple years ago, I actually was able to see this movie screened theatrically. I was one of it's only one of the few times that the movie's ever been screened theatrically, and I watched it again, and that was a fun experience. And now here we have it here in just an epic edition from 101 Films. So, what do I think about Ghostwatch now that I've watched this a third time? Well, you know, it's a pretty basic ghost movie, but I feel like the story behind it and the way that it came to be and how the BBC basically tried to bury it, and they succeeded until, you know, quite a couple years ago when it got rediscovered again. But it's just a really fascinating world of the War of the Worlds kind of a story about how this movie came to be. So basically, this movie's about a BBC telecast that they did on Halloween in 1992, and they basically faked it to be a real program that was being broadcast on the BBC, and about a haunted house and the family that was living inside of the haunted house. And basically what they would do, they would go to a live news reporter out in the house with the family, and they would intersplice it with in-studio interviews with an expert and our main host. And along the way, we would get phone calls from people, and the film would ultimately develop into a paranormal event that would cause panic within the British community. I mean, watching it now, it's kind of funny how people would get fooled by this movie, watching it thinking that it was actually live and actually happening. But you just have to put yourself in a mindset back in 1992 where there was no internet, and the BBC was known for being a good, wholesome studio who would all the time tell the truth. And this played on BBC One, which is like the main BBC channel. So the fact that the BBC greenlit this, you know, they got a lot of negative press from it because of the fact that they duped the public thinking that this was a real live broadcast, mainly because of the fact that they hired a lot of really well-known actors from BBC television, and they really played it off like it was really a real thing happening. So it kind of just got buried by the BBC. And then luckily, with the revival of services like Shudder and things like that, it finally got shown here overseas in the US, and it's kind of just taken off since then, and it's become quite a popular film. And just finally nice to have a really great, fantastic edition here from, like I said, 101 Films. So a really interesting piece of history. You know, definitely films like Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity, and even things like Wreck, you could see were influenced by this film. The night vision, you know, it's one of the first times that we see night vision, heat sensing techniques being used in a film. So, you know, it definitely had a lot of influential things in that aspect, even though it was a little bit more of an obscure film, but it definitely was known within the tight-knit horror community. So, let's talk about this edition. Just an amazing edition from 101 Films here. So we have this a beautiful, really thick outer case. Like, it's just really, really nice. And then inside we have the Blu-ray And the features, there's like a 50-minute feature on this, brand new feature that talks about the history and the making of the film, if you want to call it. Mainly about how it was originally pitched as a 6-part series, and ultimately the BBC didn't think it was going to work, but they were like, oh, we have this 90-minute spot on Halloween, could you do something with it? And they were ultimately able to piece it together. And the way that they were piecing it together, they spent like 1 month shooting all the house stuff and another month shooting all the studio stuff. And then they had to intersplice it together. So if something went wrong in the house that didn't add up to what happened in the studio, you're going to have some major continuity issues. And this wasn't going to work, and it wasn't going to be believable. So it's really a marvel in filmmaking and making things seem correct, and everything is in place. It's really nice. I feel like people don't give this movie enough credit for that aspect. So it's like a 50-minute feature with a bunch of interviews with a bunch of the crew and the cast, the director, and the director of the host, which is another really good, interesting found footage film that came out a few years ago. So a really cool featurette. And then you have the commentary track by a film historian, then another commentary track with the director and the screenwriter, and then another featurette that talks a little bit more about the impact and the history of this film. So just a really nice package for this to finally have a release here. And you got your Blu-ray and your reversible cover art with the hard case cover art. But of course, I always like to keep it with the original theatrical, if you want to say, cover art. So that's that. And then we have a book of the script. That is just a full script with storyboards and notes, a marked up version of the entire script. Just a really cool thing to have to look at after watching the movie and seeing how much the actors had to improvise and how they kind of made the movie what it is by just, doing things on the fly. So that's a really cool addition to that. And then we have some lobby cards with some with the artwork of all the characters. And then finally we have another book that just talks about the making of the movie and the history that it had on pop culture and everything like that. So just an absolutely fantastic addition from 101 Films. And the nice thing is, it's not that pricey. Like, you can go on Amazon right now and pick it up for like between 20 and 25 bucks. So to get a nice edition of a movie that's never been released here in the States like this, I mean, it's just a no-brainer. Let me get this all back in there. I'll do it later. But anyway, just a really nice, fantastic release here from 101 Films. I highly recommend you guys pick it up, support them, so we can get some more really nice, high-quality releases like this one. So thank you, everybody, for watching. That is my review of Ghostwatch. If you guys like this review, please give it a thumbs up. And as always, you can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/NESRuler22. Hope everybody's doing well, and I shall talk to you guys soon. See you guys.